Welcome to the Performance Formula with Jody Martins. Austin, officially welcome to the Performance Formula podcast. It is so cool to have you here.
I appreciate it, Jody. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. So it seems like you've had a bit of a life, if I can put it simply, and I normally start the podcast out with a sort of very specific question. So I think I'm going to ask you this question, but I definitely want you to texture your answer initially based on your experience. And I'm sure we'll sort of delve in all the things you've done and experienced and, what it is that actually got us sort of chatting a little bit today.
Yeah.
My question normally is, if there was such a thing as a formula for performance, based on all your knowledge, your experience, everything that you've been through, what would you say we should consider in that formula?
The formula for me that I use within my own life and try and get my clients to do as well is controlling the controllables. It's as simple as that. What I mean by that is controlling what you eat, what you drink, what you do with your body, what you listen to, how you react to things, all those things within your life that you can control. If you can focus on that shit and ignore as much as possible all the other anchors and sabotaging things, you're going to be leveling up a whole lot quicker. You'll pull away those anchors and lean into those propellers.
So I think that's great advice, just from the get-go, right? Control the controllables. But what I know and understand about you is that you've had a bit of a life journey, So what is it that got you to, like, you said that answer so simply, right? Boom, that's what it is. Like, how did you get there? How did you get to that place where it's that simple? And maybe it's not that simple, but yeah.
It still isn't for me today. And my like flip of the switch that we're probably going to talk about a little bit started over a decade ago. And it, even to this day, over 10, 12 years, 13 years since that point in my life, I still earned and worked on daily. It's like a skill. It's like any other skill. Getting better at cricket. The more you do it, probably the better you get at it. The less you focus on it, the less intent or intention you give it, the more your skill will dull, the worse you'll probably get at it. And it's just like any other skill, being aware of what you're able to control. And for me, it hasn't always been easy. And again, like it's earned daily. And that flip of the switch that I was mentioning earlier started back off in 2010. And it was May 9th, 2010, Mother's Day. Rewind a little bit before that date of 2010, graduated high school, was into college, no direction, no purpose, really. Just my purpose was living for the weekends, Thursday through Sunday. Where's the party? Drinks, drugs, chasing chicks, things that weren't returning me any type of value and weren't losing happiness in the same place that I was looking for it most of the time. And what I mean by that is I would not feel great about myself because I would find my way into these sabotaging either actions, decisions, vices, things that I would lean into that made me feel good in the moment. But long term, were only breaking me down, taking me backwards. And in that moment, for almost anybody, especially myself, you just sort of get caught in that cycle because you're never really feeling that great about yourself. And a quick way to start feeling good is to numb it or blindfold it, put a cover over it with all those things, putting your attention to the things that weren't serving me. And long story short, chasing weekend after weekend, partying, thinking I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I went to a party one night, got hammered, drunk, decided to get in my car and go home. And I don't remember getting in my car and going home, fortunately, but made it about a mile away from my house to where I ran off the road. Nobody was with me. I didn't hit anybody else, but ran off the road, flipped a couple times into somebody's front yard. They came, pulled me out the car, supposedly. And from there, I was sent to the hospital, and things got real quick. I ruptured my intestines, so like perforated my bowel. So everything that's in your intestines, in your stomach, in your guts sort of just leaks out into your insides and causes massive infection. Broke both my legs from the knees down, broke my left ankle. And when I sort of came to a couple of days later in the hospital, I was still so doped up from like morphine and things that they were giving me that it seemed like a Twilight Zone. Like it wasn't real. It was a weird nightmare or a dream, looking down at my stomach, seeing a gaping hole in it from where they left me open to like let healing take place, seeing my legs in splints. And I was sort of like I wasn't like cuffed down to the bed, but there's moments where I'd wake up and I was like restrained to the bed, I guess, to keep from pulling stuff out. And it was just a twilight. Like I was like, "There's what the hell's going on?" And finally, as I was starting to come to day after day, they were like, "Yeah, you were in a real bad wreck. Right now, we're trying to fight to keep your infection down, keep your white blood cell count down, because that's the most dangerous part of this whole thing is your white blood cell counts through the roof. We can't stop this infection. It is life threatening. Blah blah blah." So unsure of my future, it was taking one day at a time, just to just sit there and hope things got better. And I was in that hospital for about 6 weeks. Things eventually turned around for me, thank God. And sort of fast forwarding a little bit, was moved from the hospital after 6 weeks to a rehabilitation center, to where I lived there for 2 months. And in this rehab center was like a physical rehab center. That's where the seed was starting to get planted into self-improvement, self-development. I didn't realize it at that time, but that's where the building blocks of those little seeds were sort of dug deep down into me. And again, this wasn't a complete 180 after this event. It took a long time. But during this rehab stint, even though I was in the bed, I was bed bound. I wasn't able to use my legs. I wasn't able to get into a wheelchair. I wasn't weight bearing. Lost a shit ton of weight. I was like 110 pounds. The rehab people, the physical therapists, would come in and give me like some rubber bands to just move around on my bed and try and fight and pull on them, just to build some strength back. And once I was released to get into a wheelchair, that's where things sort of took off. I was tired of sitting in the bed 24 hours a day, so I'd hop in my wheelchair, go ride around the rehab center for hours, just because that's all I had to do. I mean, besides watch TV, as a younger guy, I was like, get me out of this place. But I was sort of stuck there because obviously I wasn't able to take care of myself. And they had a gym inside this rehab center. And it's where like they would take people that just had surgery, older patients. I was the youngest one there, and I would go down there and lock my wheelchair in place, and the physical therapist would give me some Gatorade bottles. I would curl those, and I wasn't working out any before this wreck. It's just knowing that was the actionable thing to do to start building strength back up and get my way out of that. Physical therapists would help me. They would put me up in the parallel bars. I would do dips out of my chair, shit like that. And day after day, started to realize how good I felt, because I was actually leaning into things that were like building me, positive forward actions, instead of falling into those things that I used to do that would pull me back, anchor me, sabotage, take steps backwards, and really not truly make me feel that great. 2 months later, I was able to walk out of that rehab center, and my first job outside of that rehab center was at a local gym, where a good friend of mine got me the job, and it was a front desk position. And I came with a free gym membership, and that's where fuel was added to the fire. Because after work, I'd go work out, begin to meet people, trainers, other people that were into fitness, working out for years, and learned a lot from them and had mentorees per se, and realized that I could coach. I started to realize how much it did for me, building inner contentment, building mental toughness, grit, and just overall making my life, the quality of my life, that much better, and sort of opening my eyes, that I realized I could probably help some other people do the same. Whether it was, whatever struggles they're working with. Not everybody's going through a wreck like me, but I just know how much it did for me. So I leaned into that, got a job at a local Gold's Gym, a bigger gym, worked under their business model for a few years, and then finally decided to take the leap, because I realized I could do it on my own and dive even deeper into my own clients on my own time. Opened up my own private gym that I'm in now, and I coach people in person and online.
Brilliant. What a
Yeah.
story. What a story. And I'm sure you've just given us the highlights, right? So
Yeah.
slash lowlights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like as you were telling that, right, the things that normally has me curious about stories like these is the things that really sit behind and drives us, right? Like for me, performance is an expression of the intentionality and the things on the inside, right? And so you spoke about that before the accident. You were sort of trying to numb not the feel good factor, so instead of worrying about a whole bunch of stuff, I go party and get outside and drink myself till I'm drunk. but I'm curious, like what sat behind all of that for you? Like what was the deeper hidden maybe not spoken about often, things that sat behind the curtain there that would be driving that in you at that time?
I had no confidence in myself.
Mm.
I had horrible self-talk.
Okay.
Loser. Had nothing going on for myself. No, everybody was going to college, off doing something, focusing on careers and future goals, and I was just like, "What the hell am I doing? I'm a loser. I don't have anything going on. I don't have any focus." When I realized, looking back now, my focus should have been internal, me. What if and I think this might help anybody else that's listening to this, because it helped me and helps others within my group, is if you don't have a passion or a purpose or that thing that you can lean into yourself. Start working on those things. Start working on the internal self, the internal work. And that internal work can be built through external discipline, physical fitness, strenuous activity, holding a discipline to what you eat, drink, do, listen, who you hang around, who you hang around with. Those things that you can control. And once you do that, that better version of you, mentally, physically, will be able to do anything else in life that you choose to do that much better. So opportunities and doors might open up from you leveling up yourself, because you might attract those opportunities. A person that's drunk all the time, chasing parties, living a rock star lifestyle, or at least they thought, is probably not going to attract much or have many doors open up for them. It's that bad doors.
Mm. Yeah, I agree, right? I like this idea of leaning into yourself when you don't have a passion or a purpose,
Yeah.
because we hear so often out there, find your passion, find your purpose. And for a lot of people, that is a struggle,
Yeah.
and so,
Was
so
for me.
they maybe just do what their parents are telling them to do, or you're a parent, you're just still doing what your parents told you to do, and we're unhappy in life. And so maybe it doesn't manifest for everybody. I'm sort of thinking in a way where it is a party and drinking, but it could end up in an affair, or
Yes.
it could end up in just sitting in front of the TV, sort of, just get home, not building relationships with your family. You just plonk on the couch and, you know,
That's just as bad as my wreck, man. Like,
yeah.
imagine like all the life's potential. Well, I mean, for me, like I could have nearly lost my life in that bad decision and lifestyle I was living. But same thing, living decades on the couch after work, and or whatever, like being a zombie to the day per se. That's a life unlived as well. If you think about it, it's just as
Mm.
bad,
Yeah.
or it
Yeah.
can be.
Yeah. 100%. Right. And so my sense is your solution, right, that you're bringing to this conversation is that physical exercise, leaning into yourself, looking at yourself from within. You said some words earlier. I didn't 100% catch them, but it was almost like, if like you take these positive actions, then more positive things come,
Yeah, it's
you
like
know?
attraction,
Yeah.
and I think there's a some type of, I'm not very spiritual at all myself, but I think there is some type of universal law of like, it's hard to chase things if you aren't the person who can get those things, or at least on your way, contributing some type of actions or habits or some type of lifestyle that would attract that, whether it's discipline, holding your own word with yourself, things like that. Like, if you're a person that's always slipping up in your own word or letting others down, and or not living up to some type of standard for your own personal life, like, you can't expect good things to probably come your way, because you
Mm.
won't really attract it, whether it's a person or a job opportunity or a relationship, a partner, whatever. That you don't, not to say it's a attractive trait, but like, you won't probably pull those things towards you.
Yeah.
If anything, you'll miss out on them. You won't have the clarity of it, because you're chasing things that aren't really serving you or aren't really building you. And again, I think why I say start with like the physical aspect, the physical fitness, building yourself mentally and physically, those things go hand in hand, is that develops some type of personal daily standard within your life. And that means you're probably holding your own word to yourself when you say you're going to wake up and get that workout in. You're probably holding your own word to yourself when you say, oh, I'm going to try and eat this instead of that today. You're probably holding your own word on a lot more things throughout the day that's going to open those doors, that you aren't going to just, it doesn't matter today, it's not that important, or, I'll start again Monday. If you're one of those people, most likely you're saying those same things, whether you realize it or not, to opportunities or doors that could open for you.
Mm.
Not to say you need to be a yes man to everything, but if you aren't already having momentum built with yourself, it's going to be hard to catch outside of self.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have a sense of that in my own life too. Like I think even just where I am right now, having recently moved here to New York or New Jersey, I suppose we were in New York yesterday. Um, it was a sort of series of events that led, yeah, right. And it was a series of sort of commitment to myself around certain things.
Yeah,
For me, it was sort of like unplugging from one life and unplugging into a different life and giving up everything in the process, right? Like gave up
that's huge.
income, gave up freaking a lot of things to move from big city to small town in South Africa to choose to focus on one specific thing that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
Um, so I mean, I don't want to delve into my sort of story a lot, but I resonate well with your story in a different way. Yeah, I wasn't lying on a bed, and I encourage everybody to go look at your profile, right, and see some of the images that you have available. Like, I mean, they're pretty gruesome, right, and they're pretty intense. To see you lying in a hospital bed with your stomach open, essentially, you can
Yeah.
see the insides, but that's essentially what you're seeing. Like, I looked
Yeah.
at this and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks intense, right?
I'm glad I was doped up when I remember seeing that. I was very under drugs at the time in the
At the
hospital. So
time.
yeah.
So
So if I was this stone cold sober, I'd probably freak out as well.
yeah, like I look at that and I go, geez, that looks intense, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious because a couple of months ago I had like I don't think it's much, right? Like in the bigger scheme of things, it's not much. But I had a moment where I thought, shucks, I'm dying, right? Just very briefly. And I sort of know the effect that had on me, but I'm curious with this type and this intensity of that exercise and doctors actually telling you, listen, this is serious. And sort of seeing how you shifted your life beyond that. Like, what was that like to go through those sort of realizations, having to just lie in a bed with your own thinking, starting to sobering up, seeing yourself looking the way you're looking. Here I'm in a bed 24/7 and I'm going like, oh, shucks, this could be the end, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you had those sort of thoughts. I'm just sort of coming from my side, like, what is that like to just not be able to do anything and you just with your thoughts?
For me, the most I could remember during those times, there was a time where, and I think what drowned or made it muddy for me of like actually coming to realization that I could lose my life was the fact that they did keep me so induced with drugs when I was in there. So like when I would come to and they would say, "Hey, we're bringing in the chaplain today. Your white blood cell counts up. They're going to talk to your family." And it's like, I mean, I realize looking back now that's not a good sign, but then I was so almost numb, like from just the drug of it, and that it still felt like a twilight. And when I started to come away from those, and they were pulling the dosages or weaning me off some of those painkillers and stuff that they were giving me while I was still in the hospital, I just remember just taking it one day at a time. I was like, let me just make it through the day,
Mm.
and there literally was nothing I could do for the day, but it was like, let me just make it through the day.
Yeah.
And
How did you make it through the day?
try not to overthink.
Yeah.
Realizing that like, okay, I'm not dead. That's the worst case scenario.
Mm.
Dead. I'm not dead today. Let me just push through and see what tomorrow brings. And
Mm.
sometimes it might be like that. You might not always have forward momentum or a forward step every single day. And at least at that point of my life, I didn't. And still some days today, yes, I want to strive for these great movements and this actionable step. But sometimes you might just be like, all right, let me just make sure I hold the line today. Let me just, and whatever that may be. But back
Mm.
then, it was just one day at a time. It was like, all right, well, let me see what tomorrow brings. Hopefully I'm
Mm.
feeling a little bit better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And most of the time it was that way. The sun always came back up. You start to, especially in that point in time, like the littlest things would like bring joy to the day. Seeing a sunrise was awesome. Seeing a fresh cup of water brought in was awesome. Like those little things, and maybe it makes me a little bit more grateful for some of the things that I have nowadays. But and I'm sure it does. But for me, it was one, especially once it got to the rehab center, when I was, all right, I'm out of the clear of losing my life. And now it's like, what do I do next? What's my future going to be? I realized that, I had a bonus round that I was given. Like, I'm alive. I made it through that shit. Let me get the hell away from that as quickly as I can. Let me
Mm.
start building myself back up. And I
Mm.
think, some people may not have that. Maybe some people haven't hit the bottom hard enough, like that did for me, to where it causes that flip of the switch to be like, fuck that.
Mm.
No way.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't easy. I still found my way back into getting in trouble a little bit months after that, but not losing my life or getting close to anything like that such. But like, I still found my ways into some of the old ways and bad habits, but it's almost like touching the hot stove twice or 2 or 3 times. You're like, oh, I see where that's going to go. I don't like the way that feels. And, you got to use regret as like a sense of a guide almost. When you feel a certain way, when you feel negative about something or an action or a decision that you made, you want to use it as a guide and be like,
Mm.
okay, that didn't feel good. That doesn't make me feel good, or whatever negative emotion or feeling. Let me try and be intentful and aware that I shouldn't do that, or I should limit trying to do that at all.
Mm.
And for me, that was hanging out with the same old people or doing the same old actions, thinking a different outcome was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that because easy. I guess easy, but I wish there was something deeper to it. I literally took it one day at a time,
Mm.
and let me just make it through the day.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes, like I've walked this mental performance journey, trying to understand the mind for performance, and the more I think about it and the more I work with it, the more I realize it's very simple. Like the
Yeah.
mental game as a human being, when it comes to performance, if you, I mean, in your sphere, you work with people who want to get fitter, stronger, and I'm not sure if you specialize in, say, specific things. Is it more bodybuilding? Is it more sports specific, or is it everything, whatever the client sort of wants and needs?
Yep.
But the things that you require of them is normally simple. It's like show
Yes.
up. It's like show up, lift the weights, whatever it might be, as your program, do your thing, off you go. And so it's the same, I think, from a mental point of view. It's the ideas and concepts are not rocket science. It's not like they have something special attached to them. It's normally very simple things. The same idea, like show up, be responsible for yourself. But to actually do them, to actually
Yeah.
commit to getting it done and being able to show up in that way for ourselves, just from a pure mental point of view, is not easy. That's where the struggle sits for people.
Yes. That's the test. Is the
Mm.
days when you don't feel like doing it, whatever goal or thing you said that you were going to start doing or taking action on, and that point in time, whether it's a certain day or a certain time of the day where you're like, I don't feel like doing that, or, ooh, it doesn't fit my schedule, my timeline, or my comfort level right now. But that is the test to see if you're worthy for that next level or that next transition or level up, whatever. You skipping out or avoiding it or saying, I'll push it off, or I'm not going to do it today. That was a test, whether you passed or failed. And every time you can push through and just do it, regardless, it's like you said, it's simple, but it's not easy. It develops a skill into that grit, into that perseverance, into that mental toughness, per se. Almost like a video game character. You start off with like the point system, like 0 to 100 on confidence and 0 to 100 on grit. And every time you take action, instead of avoiding or skipping or delaying, you're adding a point to that scale. And every time you dismiss it, disregard it, whatever, you're probably deducting points from that scale. So it can all be deposited or removed through those tests of leaning into whatever your goal is. And I wanted to mention, you were talking about, like a blueprint or an actionable thing. It's like a simple plan. And what I try and do, because I'm a simpleton at heart. Like, I'm an average simpleton dude. I'm lazy at heart, kind of. I don't want complicated stuff. And if it was complicated, I probably wouldn't do it. But for me, and what I've always realized is to figure out who you want to be. And it doesn't have to be like I'm not talking about just in fitness, but having a personal guidebook, and not literally, but in the aspect of, all right, what is that future version of Austin? What do I want him to look like? What do I want him? What is his job going to be? What is his career going to be? What does he want to do? What kind of house does he want to live in? What type of car does he want to drive? What does he want to show up like? Does he want to show up fit and shape? Does he want to wear certain clothes or look a certain way? What does he want? And through that, you can start to build a like a daily actionable list of things that Austin would conduct. What would that future Austin do and conduct in his day? All right, let me start implementing those things. What does that Austin probably don't do? He probably doesn't do this, doesn't do that. He probably does this and does a lot more of that. And I'm not talking about just the financial means of it. I'm saying, like, how does that person, there's a person we all admire. You probably have people you follow on Instagram, social media, hopefully not celebrities per se, but like just somebody around you, maybe in your life that you admire. Like, damn, that person's got a little something that I want. They got it going on. They show up, they got their shit together. They show up confident. Let me watch what they do throughout the days. How do they conduct themselves? Do they just show up late and kind of like disorganized and disheveled, or are they waking up early, controlling their wake up time? Are they monitoring or aware about what they eat? Do they go the extra mile? Do they, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you can find a person that you admire and start to implement some of the characteristics, not everything, we're not trying to become them, but implement some of their daily conduct, you'll probably start to build that person that you would admire within yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that advice, right? I'm always reminded of this idea I was taught in my when sort of people speak about it in this way, like you just did, that a lot of people think, or the approach tends to be, when I become the CEO of the company, then I will, versus saying, who am I as the CEO and how can I do that now already? How can I
Yeah.
be the CEO that I want to be one day now? And that's essentially what you're saying. And I love that. I think that is phenomenal advice.
Yeah.
Um, Everybody, including me, can be more mindful of, right? In 5 years or 10 years from now, where am I? And for me personally, I don't necessarily always make that about the car I have and the house I have and the things that I have, but maybe more the person I am. How am I
Yeah.
treating people around me? Like, what's my values? How am I showing up? You sort of alluded to that stuff too. Like, I personally resonate really well with that. I do know for other people it might be the car in the house, and that's okay too, because that would say that you are a certain type of person, right? It
Yes.
builds you towards what you want to become. So
And
I think it's
I
brilliant
agree with
advice.
you. You got to start with the person who could, you got to build the person who could get that car, that house, that, it's not like, oh, I just want to get the car. It's like, how do I get the car? I got to become the person that have the ethics, the conduct of a person that either finds the means or makes the means to get that,
Mm.
so it does start still with self, becoming the person who could get those things. If you
Yeah.
want those things, you don't have to have those things. You could just be, hey, I just want to be straight, controlled and disciplined within my life, which will make other things within your life that much better. I'm not talking about being a monk and like some like militant person and having no fun in your life. I'm just talking about holding some type of standards to things that you do and don't, and trying to limit those things that are holding you back. And most of the time, it's hard to see it in the moment. You have to actually either write it down or just sort of take account of your days and be like, all right, where am I wasting a lot of time?
Mm.
What is actually pushing me forward? What actionable things can I start implementing today that would start not get me there today, but start taking one step forward to where I want to go 30,
Mm.
60, 90 days, a year from now,
Yeah. 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 It's really difficult in the modern life, though, at times. Everybody wants things now.
Oh, dude, me too.
Oh, it's lovely
Me
being
too.
here in the US, right? It's lovely being here. You want something, you go Amazon, right? Next day
Yeah.
delivery. I don't even have to get in my car and go buy it, right? And so we all want things now, and I think that's a big part of the modern struggle, is that we seem to think that even the famous people and the successful people out there have got things just easy.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe some of them do. Who knows? But for the most, I think it takes time and it takes energy and it takes effort. And that overnight success is actually 10, 15 years of effort that's gone towards something.
I want to break down something I heard from a mentor of mine. Uh it's called like a success curve, and it could be implemented to anything that you want to like build, create, or obtain in your life. And it's using the concept of like growing corn, like corn,
Mm.
like let's say a cornfield, and you're gonna plant these seeds in the ground, and that's the first step. You're starting to take those actionable steps to whatever. daily actionable steps aligned with that said goal. And for the first probably 7, 14, 21 days, you don't see shit come out of the ground. But daily, you're still watering it. Daily, you're making sure it gets sunlight, attention. You're doing whatever to make sure that seed is getting what it needs every day, not knowing when it's going to sprout, right? Like almost having faith that
Mm.
even if I do all this shit, it's eventually going to happen. And that's kind of the way you have to be. And it sucks, like you said, with today's age and, whatever we want now. But after 14, 21, maybe even longer, you start to see a little bit of green pop through the ground. So, okay, I'm starting to lean into those things even more. And, it's after, let's say, depends on the goal, let's say 30, 60, 90 days. Okay, things are actually starting to appear out the ground now. We start to have a stalk shoot out the ground. And it puts it puts more emphasis into those actions and building the belief, because the work has to come before the belief. You have to do the work without seeing a result for X amount of days. And for everybody, different cases might take longer, it might be quicker. But you have to put in the work before the belief happens. And then once the work and belief take, something begins to sprout pretty much. So I think realizing that anything takes time, almost like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the best time to plant a tree is now, because it's going to take some time for that bitch to grow.
Yeah. I have a similar story. It's based around bamboo, because bamboo takes even longer. I don't know if you
No,
certain
I never
types of
heard of
bamboo. There's some bamboo that I think it takes up to 30 years before it shoots
it.
up. But when it shoots up, it like literally shoots up in days. And then it
Damn.
goes like very, very high. But it takes like an insanely long time for it to essentially grow the root system.
Yeah.
But once it's sort of ready, it just shoots up, you know. And
That sounds like that's probably a very relatable concept, It's just
yeah. I'd like to think that for people who are listening to this podcast, listening to your story, and this is sort of my sense at this point in time, is that if we can do those sort of daily actionable steps, and we do the work as you suggest, where we're sort of defining who we want to be and we take the steps towards that, then it makes sense that when the great things come our way, we can stand sort of more on firmer ground. We can be more authentic with them. We can be more real. We don't have to act. We don't have to sort of be something we're not, because the success we're getting is based on the work we've done.
yeah.
Versus when you get the success quickly, there is the possibility, if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you're about, you don't know what you stand for, you don't know your values and principles, then you can be blown wherever the wind may goes, And
Yes.
maybe you weren't living the lifestyle you were living pre your accident, but maybe then it starts because you have got no idea. So you get swept to parties and you get thrown about, and then,
Yes.
and so it makes sense to do the work, irrespective of what
Yeah.
happens later, you know?
And that work creates the new identity in yourself. And I think that's a big point for me that helped, was me going to the gym and having those daily habits, those new daily habits, casted and like put votes into that new version of Austin that I wanted to be. Somebody that wasn't always taking back steps, chasing happiness in the same places I was losing it,
Mm,
and shit like that. Building myself daily and feeling more confident. I do believe the work instills the worth.
mm,
The more you do it, the more you feel good, and at least you're taking positive forward steps towards something. Which
mm,
progress at the end of the day fuels the soul. If if you aren't probably progressing in some aspect, and again, it doesn't have to be these mountain moving, trajectories, but little base hits here or there, little step forward. Uh, you're probably not gonna feel that great. You're gonna feel like you're lost and stuck or frustrated.
mm. Yeah.
And when you can just focus on what you can control, regardless if the day turns into a shitstorm, at least I did something for me.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, hey, those are things outside of my control. I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting, your approach, right? That I'm sort of hearing you speak about, because often this is something that's debated, right? So we know and understand that the mind is super important and it's super powerful, and that it can essentially set us up. And so often there's the approach of saying we have to sort the mind out first, and then we can take the action because we're coming from a different mental space altogether. Your approach seems to be flipping that upside down, right? That's the other side of the conversation, almost like, no, take the action first.
Yes.
And because I'm taking the action over time, my mind learns to be different. My mind learns to take on a different belief and understand something different about myself. I'm sort of curious what your take is on the other way around, right? Like you've lived this action first approach. Like if you had to sort of think about doing it from the other way around, how would you think of, like, would you think that that can work successfully in some way, or do you see some gaps in it?
Ah, for me, I don't think it would work because,
Okay.
and this is one of the reasons why, is at least for me, and I'm sure maybe some other people that are listening to this, maybe you could relate. I'm not sure. Don't want to put words into your mouth, but your mind knows exactly what to tell yourself to talk your way out of doing whatever you need to get done. It knows exactly what you want to hear. Oh, you've had a long day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you had to wake up early. It's cold this morning. You don't have to go do that. You can do it later. Or oh, just start again. Start again tomorrow. Don't. It's not that important. Instead, setting it as a non-negotiable as best as possible. No, I'm going to take the action regardless of what my mind says and regardless of my emotion or my impulse, short-term emotion per se. I'm thinking long-term vision, goal. I'm going to do it anyways, and just more so, just get it done today. Just win today.
Mm-hmm.
I can quit tomorrow. I can take the day off tomorrow. Let me just do it today. That's literally some of the only talk that I have is just do it today, Austin. Skip it tomorrow, quit tomorrow, take tomorrow off, and tomorrow say the same thing.
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
You know what I'm saying? For me, that's what's really worked, and it keeps that.
Mm.
Not every day's perfect. I have plenty of lost days, plenty of days where the mind just wins completely, and it's like, I guess it's a complete. And I don't look at it as like, oh, it's a loss. I hate myself. It's gonna happen. We can't have all those sunny days without a few rainy days, right? But like the goal is to have more W's,
Mm.
forward momentum throughout your calendar, a W, a win each day, than more L's. And
Yeah.
for me, it's just just do it today. You know
Mm.
what? If you don't, you only regret when you miss. You never regret just doing it, especially after you do it. Let's say, for example, sending that email, making that phone call, sending that application out, or getting that workout in that you just didn't feel like doing. And once you do it, though, and you just bowl your way through it, you typically feel a whole lot better with yourself after. You're like, damn, I'm so glad I did that. I didn't want to do it. Most of the time, you're like, I'm a badass. And you tend to get that internal self talk like that, man. Dude, you almost quit, man. You're a killer. You almost talked your way out of it. But
Mm-hmm.
you typically feel worse when you regret, or you regret when you miss.
Mm.
And not
I
again, you
love
don't want
that.
to feel, you don't want to let that like completely ruin your day and like your mindset, but realizing that like, hey, today one,
Mm.
I did. Tomorrow I got a fresh slate tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, and then when tomorrow comes, you go, I'm going to get this done today.
Yeah.
What I love about that, right, which I've never thought about before, what I love about that is when we say, there's always tomorrow, right? And that's sort of, I'll get it done tomorrow. You're technically always living in the future.
Yeah.
You're always shifting the things from the present moment into the future. And so then we don't get things done. Where by saying, I'm going to get this done today, stuff it, let me just do this. Essentially, you're dragging things into the present, which is always better, right? It's better for development, it's better for performance, it's better for all the things I think you've shared with us in this podcast so far: the feel good, the confidence, the good self talk. My sense is it would be better for all of that if we can just get some more stuff done, and it doesn't have to be more stuff, but get the
No.
things done that's really important. Yeah.
Yes. And I can't agree more. Like how many times, and I just say it out of experience, how many times have you kicked that rock down the road saying, oh, tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns into tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns into tomorrow, and you just keep kicking that thing down, and you're like, damn, it's been 3 weeks and I still haven't done that thing, or I still haven't started it. What the hell? Like I get into those traps still, and that's when you have to be. That's from the skill of awareness and an intent, like the skill that hopefully you develop over time, realizing, oh, I'm in this moment. Let me chop the head off that snake right now, and let me just knock it out now. Let me just Do it now,
Mm,
get the ball rolling, or close the
yeah.
door per se instead of cutting the head off the snake. I use those terminologies a lot with my clients. Just close the door. You left the door cracked. Close that door shut. Let's knock it out, or let's chop the head off the snake. Get it done and move on. Because
Mm,
I myself, if I let myself get into my own mind, I can definitely kick stuff off to tomorrow.
yeah.
It happens just as easy for me as anybody else.
Yeah. And I suppose maybe this is where my head sort of goes naturally with this conversation so far is the more you know who you are, the more you know which are the important things to do.
Yes.
Or the more you know who you really want to be, the more you know which things to focus on. Because every day, like if I think of my day today, right, there's maybe 10 things I can get done. I still have to get into my training. I have some online programs I'm developing. I got some stuff to do for the Cricket Academy. So the more I go, okay, but hang on, in 5 years from now, where am I? Then it
Yes.
starts helping me sift through those things to say which of them are important. And
Yes.
if all of them are important in 5 years from now, well, then today I've got to do one thing in all of those. What's the next step I can take? That's sort of what I'm learning from you, yeah, right? Like
Yes.
it helps me sort of. I love every part of this conversation because I think some of these things I struggle with, like just like everybody else. And you also say, I struggle with these things, right? And so just having to be able to connect with you sort of put some of these for me in perspective. That's maybe a really awesome way to figure out what action I need to take. And the more I take that action, the more I'm becoming that person, right? So I wrote
Yes.
down here, and one thing I realized, which I've never sort of said in this way before, is what you didn't say these exact words, but it sort of makes this come alive for me is that action leads to awareness. Because often I ask my guests on the podcast, like, how do you make people more aware? Because we all talk about that it needs more awareness. But what I've learned, Jets, it's that when you take the action, it's the succeeding and the failing. Like it's almost like it's like when you write a software program, you test the program, you test run, you see if it works, and at the end it says yes, it passed or it failed, kind of
Yep.
like. And so when we do the action, you're saying it like fires off a signal to say success or not success. And if it's not a
Yes.
success, then I can adjust the action. And if it's a success, well, I can continue with the action.
Yes.
And and that's awareness. Awareness is knowing if something works or if it doesn't work, or how does it fit with me? Does it feel right? Does it not feel right? Um,
And most things,
yeah.
like most things, are trackable. And I'm not an analytical person or a statistical person at all, really, but most things are kind of like trackable as far as developing your business, your job, your career. If you're leveling up in that, you're able to track, like write down, those daily actionable things, whatever you're working on. All right, how much did I get done? Where did that get me by the end of the week, by the end of the month, whatever. Same thing with your fitness. You're tracking your weight, you're tracking your foods, you're tracking with your progress pictures. Same thing with almost anything. You can. It's there's some type of trackable thing to it, whether it's something you can actually write down or see or whatever that you can realize, okay, after a couple of days of those actions or lack of, it's gotten me to this point. Do I like this point or not? All right, let me reevaluate, pivot, and move on, or figure out what's propelling it forward and what's holding it back. So I think for the most people, a lot of getting back to like simplicity of stuff, I think success with most things is subtractive. Like if you can just remove a lot of things that typically you're either spinning your wheels with or it's just not serving your deep down goal, whether it's wasting time over here or messing with people that aren't, not to say it has to be transactional, but dealing with stuff that isn't really fueling it, then, the moment you can avoid or chop those
Mm.
things off, the quicker you can. And sometimes it's not easy. It takes time. The lighter the ship gets and the faster it can go,
Yeah, I love that. No, and I agree with that 100%. It was a concept that was taught to me a whole bunch of years ago, by probably 3 or 4 years ago, by a sort of coach I worked with at the time, and she explained to me that when we talk about a decision, right? Normally, so it's not we think about a decision is what am I including? What am I adding? Am I going to do this? Where it's not. Decision actually comes from the word incision, which means to cut away,
Yeah.
which means, and it's essentially exactly what you're saying, like to subtract. And so many times we say, oh, and I got to add another thing into my schedule. I got to, do more. Yeah, where it's often not that. It is Okay, what am I leaving out? What am I
Yeah.
not committing to? What I'm not going to say yes to? What am I going to, you know, yo, yeah, I mean, every part of this conversation, and I think every part of your story is, and what you have to share here, I think is so valuable, right? My podcast here tends to be, focused on performance and how we get more of that. And we tend to talk about things like how to be more present and how to be more mindful and how to be more focused. And, I love having guests like you on, which just brings a different element, which just brings a sort of makes us sit back and maybe be a little bit more philosophical about our life and where we're going. But I feel like these conversations underpin all of that other stuff, right? If I have all those other conversations, to be more calm and present in the moment, if you don't know who you are, how the
Yes.
hell do you do that? If you're not knowing what you're about and what you're committed to and what your values and principles is and what you stand for, then how do you go into a moment of the battle of performance and sharp edge of the knife when there's millions of eyes on you potentially? Maybe not, maybe it's just three, but like, how do you go stand there if you can't show up as you?
Yes.
And so
And
I think this conversation is important, in that way.
yeah. And I just want to hit on, and maybe like, I feel like I kind of butchered my thought, because when I break it down to some of my clients, and including myself, is that brand book. Think of it more so, instead of like a person, think of it like a business. Like, I'm sure there's a business that everybody can relate to out there that has a brand book. Like, what that business looks like, what they stand for, what they don't stand for. And the moment you can start to implement, it doesn't have to be as rigid as that for yourself, but you can have things that you stand for and things that you don't, and the way you want to conduct yourself day to day, like any other probably business or brand book would have, a conduction book. That'll help get you aligned with what actions you need to take steps on today. At
Mm,
least the things, and it may not be for forever. It's just for an indefinite period of time, until you can add more to the book and be like, okay, I've been doing these. It's gotten me this result. I've created this new identity for myself, or I'm this much further along. All right, what can I reevaluate in this book and or add to it, subtract to it, whatever, that keeps you aligned. I think having some type of daily process, or like those actionable steps that we keep talking about, they definitely have to be thought out. They just can't be like, oh, I'm going to wake up and just start doing this, which sometimes might be a good idea. It was for me, kind of, because I just picked up fitness and exercising and realizing how much that would create in my life. But it definitely, it could have been time collapse probably a lot for me, if I would have gave it more thought sooner than
mm.
taking 12 years, 10 years to get to the person I am today. But fitness was definitely a pillar of it, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that like explains how to maybe set up some type of alignment book for
Mm.
your day, or alignment guide that would help tell you what you should act upon today.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. That leads to journaling potentially for some, if that's your thing, right?
Yep.
Or it leads to having a mechanism where you go get coached by somebody and you can speak to them
Yeah.
regularly. Yeah. I mean, you've referenced that you've had a mentor, I don't know
Yeah.
if you still
No,
do, but you,
it'd be hypocritical for me to not have worked with coaches, being a
yeah.
coach. So I mean, yeah, I've definitely had coaches before.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's many ways around that, right? But I love again, it's simple. Have you got your brand book down? Do you know who
Yeah.
you are, what you're about, normally those books have like our mission, our vision, our values, I think of, if you walk into an Apple store, that provides you with a certain experience, right? It's normally clean. It's not cluttered. You walk into a Walmart, it doesn't look the same. Even
No.
the electronics section, it does not look the same, right? It's a
No.
different experience. And so I think
Yeah.
each of us has an opportunity. And I mean, thank you. Thank you for you to sort of just again raise the awareness around this sort of idea that each of us has this opportunity where we can essentially determine what that looks like for us, and then we can take the action to build the belief, to build that inner game, to then be able to do more of those actions, or to do those actions more under pressure, or whatever it might be.
Yep.
um you know yeah.
And I think, to like finish that off, is one thing that I try and keep in mind, because it's easy to like write this stuff down or like have affirmations like some people might use. They try and speak it in to existence, or, which is a good thing. You want positive self-talk and whatnot, and that's created typically through action, though, not through just talk. But we're only as good as the example we set. So think about those actions that you're taking throughout the day, those decisions you're making throughout the day, and or avoiding, and or whatever. Are your actions and decisions today inspiring others, or is it giving a bad example, holding them back? And if you're probably inspiring others, you're probably leading, you're probably moving forward in some aspect. You're elevating, you're leveling up. And if you realize, if somebody rewatched my day today, like, is it kind of motivating or inspiring at all? Did I push forward? Did I hold my own word, or did I completely sabotage the day?
Mm.
I think that's something that I keep down in my mind.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great reflection strategy. Very cool.
Did I inspire somebody to take that first step today? Did I inspire them to not sleep in today? These are personal things that I try and uphold. I try and control my wake up time. I try and control my physical activity throughout the day, whether it's a walk or an exercise, strength training, whatever. I try and control what I eat, because that's something else I can control. Can I inspire somebody to start taking action on that today? Whatever. Maybe thinking differently through a podcast like this. That it's what are some things? And again, it doesn't have to be these ultimate things, but are your actions inspiring or motivating?
Mm. Yeah, love that. Austin, I've loved this conversation. If people are in, who knows who listens to this, right? Maybe somebody from Richmond, Virginia listens to this and they feel like, geez, I need to connect with this guy. Maybe it's somebody like me that just wants to have a chat and learn from you. If you're open to it, where do people find you? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, definitely give me a follow on Instagram at @apageman. And I'm super active on Instagram. I post on my stories throughout the day showing my daily processes, what works for me. And I drop a shit ton of Q&As within the stories as well. So I'm always answering questions. And to sign up for coaching or learn more about it, you can check out my website at www.gymflowcoaching.com. And that's GYMFLO. There's no W. Coaching.com.
Yeah. I definitely encourage anybody to connect with you, specifically because you do things online, right? And so, or you have that option available. So,
yes, yeah.
So certainly anybody from anywhere around the world listening to this can happily connect with Austin over here, and not just get, hopefully, his insights into the gym stuff, which you and I didn't cover about, but you also get to have an awesome sort of person that's been through it, been there, seems to have certainly overcome a lot of his own challenges, and in doing so, can help others with that.
Yes, sir.
You certainly helped me a lot in this conversation make sense of a little bit more of things for myself. I certainly think you've added to the conversation around a formula for performance. Like things like knowing who we are, how we, and what we want to become, and what are the steps and the actions that we can do today to get us there. I think it's super important in that, and so, yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, brother.
Awesome.